And like I said before too, you will find 15-minute a little bit over the top sometimes. And it's unfortunate, but it happens that way. So that's a 19 pip pullback. I don't love it as structure, but it is structure. And you'll find that you get this a lot with 15-minute. You also find the 15 will be the best time frame to get you into trades, as you can find POIs on the 15 and ultimately move into your execution time frame. So our push ends right here. I don't think that's enough of a pullback. We can double check if that's structure or not. 12 pips. It's not like great structure, but we'll class it as structure. It meets the criteria. Once again, you have, so the push ends right here. Now this will be your pullback here, and then we'll say it is one clean push right to the bottom. And ultimately, you don't have any more lows. We do wick below it here, which is more of a liquidity grab. It fails to create any new structure. And here, we take the high point and become bullish again. So if you wanted to move this point over to here, you totally can. Again, this is not the greatest pullback, but I'm guessing it's just over 10 pips. Yeah, we'll class that as structure. So we are confirmed bullish on the 15, and ultimately what's happening here though is 4 hour took this low here when this 4 hour low here was created. So now looking at it from a higher time frame perspective, you would be likely looking at running this low. Now obviously the trend's not confirmed yet, so it can reverse here, but you can also formulate a trade idea to run this low. Pull back here, new structure here, and ultimately we don't have any more structure to the upside, but we do have bearish structure here. Our first bit of a pullback is kind of right here. I'm guessing that's roughly 13-14 pips. That should be no issues to map that as structure. We have another low here. This is also your 4 hour low here that we just created. So something to keep in mind every time a 4 hour low is run, we don't know when, but we can anticipate a pullback because all of this liquidity was absorbed. And we never know how large the pullback or exactly when. Sometimes the pullback may not happen till down here, or it happens right away up here. So it's always good to pay ourselves as soon as this low goes and take the majority of your money off there. And if you want to leave a little runner on, you totally can. But it's just always ensuring yourself you're getting paid. Now here we do become temporarily bullish. I don't love it, but it is what it is. And the bullish structure actually doesn't fail till over here because that's our low. So you are back to being bearish, and I believe this made a new 4 hour low. So as we said before, as soon as a 4 hour low is run, anticipate some sort of pullback. We don't know when. At this point, you wouldn't be looking at running this point, but you would maybe anticipate a pullback to maybe this supply zone, and you would play this safe until this high goes, and now you can start building a narrative to continue on up. So we're always ultimately just trying to align the 15-minute with the 4-hour. So if the 15-minute and the 4-hour are not aligned, your trades are always going to be shorter, but you're guaranteeing yourself that you're going to pay yourself. So ultimately our high here on the 15 is the 4-hour high, which I would say doesn't end till over here. And our first bit of pullback would be in here. We have another pullback here when this high goes. Now again, this may seem very repetitive. I assure you it's very necessary. Some people are going to get this really quick. Other people are going to want to practice this a little more. So we're going to try to explain it as well as we can, just so people have something to go off of. So you have another high point. Now again, if you look down here, again, no body comes below this low. It's just a wick. So we're not too worried about that. And ultimately we have a new high here. To me, this would be the high point. Could even call it this. This would be your low. Once again, once this high is taken, and these are obviously news candles. EU doesn't generally move this much at once unless it's news driven, which is one of the reasons why I like this pair for anybody that's a beginner. And I still trade it myself. It's probably the easiest pair to trade in my opinion. Great for building confidence. So once again here we take this high, the impulse completes, and we continue on with the bullish push. And what we'll do here, we're just going to zoom out for a second and show everybody what we've mapped so far. So we started back here in April, and you can see this push up continues. Then we turn bearish here to have this daily pullback, and ultimately we end up realigning with the higher time frame to continue on up. So we'll zoom in here again, and ultimately we have a low, we have another high. Now these are pretty minuscule pullbacks up here. If we did want to class these as structure, we can. Myself, I'm just going to say this is one complete push just because I don't want to map 3 structure points in that little stretch. And you may find that you do. I try to keep structure mediocrely stable, meaning I don't want too many structure points, but I also don't want not enough. And that's where the 10-15 pip rule on the 15-minute can be quite flexible, and you can kind of use it to help you out in any way you see. Alright, so once again we turn bearish here. We have a high. We have another low. And we do have a bit of a pullback here. Don't love this pullback. Let's see. So 15, yeah, 14.7. So unfortunately that is structure. And here we fail to create a new low. However, we end up making a new high just to create a new low. That will happen at times. There's really nothing you can do about it. I wouldn't get too focused on that. It's not going to happen all the time, but on the 15-minute, this kind of stuff does happen. And this is where the higher time frame will again help you out. And if you're not sure, just remember, you don't need to be in a trade. If you don't want to be in a trade, don't be in a trade. So let's see, this is probably enough of a pullback here. And we again have new structure created here. So the 15 can be quite monotonous, as you can see. And here we take the low. So we can actually call this our high point, and this is our low point. Now it may seem confusing right now, but I promise with a little bit of practice it's not that bad. So here we are starting a bearish retracement again. So anytime the 15 minutes starts failing to make new highs and ultimately supply is holding at the top, we can start assuming that the 4-hour retracement starts. And once this low goes, we can assume that we'll get at least one more pullback and at least one more push on the 15. It doesn't always work out that way, but generally there's at least 2 pushes. And depending which pair you trade and what your back testing's like, you'll figure out what works for you. So here we don't really have any real pullback till pretty much the impulse ends. Let's see, let's double check that. I don't think that's enough, no. So our pullback would be pretty much at this point here. And ultimately the bearish order flow continues. Now it's very important to use 15 market structure because you can get quite confused if you go lower. I remember this trade here, and on the 5-minute we actually received a body close above here, and I found a 1-minute flip here, and I actually took a long here. And back then I was still using 5-minute and 15-minute, and that's when I kind of started figuring out that 15-minute gets you on the right side of things a lot more often. So here we wick above the 15-minute, but there's no body close, which told us to keep on shorting. Whereas if you find this area on the 5-minute, there is a body close above this, and right away you're just like, oh, well, the body closed above it, we better start to looking at taking loans. So it can get very confusing. 15 keeps us on the right side of things more often than not. So ultimately our structure would be down here. Again, a little bit of a weird structure here. I don't love it, but that's just the way it worked out. So our push completes here. Now ultimately we have a pullback up here, and you don't really have any structure till this low goes. Now here we have another low point. This is also a 4-hour and a daily low, as you can see with our blue and black lines, and you don't have any structure till this high goes. It's very important not to get lost. A lot of people get really lost in this stuff, and this stuff is all classified as substructure, or you can classify it as internal structure, meaning it is internally contained within the 2 structure points. Yes, this broke a supply. You could call this a change of character and willingness to go up. Price came back down, failed to breach this demand. You can maybe now start formulating an idea that this high becomes weak because it failed to run this low, and maybe the higher time frame trend realigns, and you can start looking for loans. And ultimately we start developing all that by